Hey, it's Zave. Absolute cinema. Peak. I'm not even glazing when I say Kuro has proven time and time again that they refuse to slow down when it comes to improving the game. Each update is better than the last. If you played Star Rail, do you remember the feeling we had way back at Yurillo when we faced Kakoya and Wildfire kicked in?
We made a choice, go fight against your fate!
Take that feeling, quadruple it, and you'll have what I felt throughout this entire story quest. The sense of scale, the presentation, the music, even the gameplay itself, everything was just peak. So let's get into it. Spoilers ahead, of course, and if you're not caught up, I've done coverage of the last update, so feel free to take a gander at that before you watch this one if you need to. Alright, let's go over the story quest and talk about what I like and what I didn't like, and things that I noticed throughout the narrative. Let's begin. This quest starts the same way most of the 2.x quests have started in the past, with us looking for our perfect, sweet, plump, glazed honey bun, Kartathea. Abby points out that something feels off in the city, and we feel it too, but we can't exactly place what's wrong. Brant and Roshia are putting on a little street performance, and before we can even talk to them, we have a brief mental attack from the Dark Tide. We then get a visual of our perfect honey bun Kartathea, dead, with a wound in her chest, a dark omen of the future. We open up our eyes to find ourselves in some type of realm of darkness. This is where we meet her, Gabrena, aka Sourpuss. Sourpuss comes off a bit antagonistic but advises us to leave the dark realm. She says that there isn't any paradise or salvation to be found here. Remember those words. She then looks to the sky and says, "I will deliver you her death." That, combined with the fact that we just had a vision of our perfect honey bun dead, makes Sourpuss over here main op number one. We awaken to see one of the cutest stills we've gotten in a minute. Roshia holding a fat ass lollipop and Abby's flabbergasted face is priceless. Brant informs us that everyone in Raguna has been having strange dreams, visions and memories brought to life that give them a sense of comfort, all promising them salvation in paradise. The tacit discords that we saw in the Dark Realm also spoke of a harbinger, but the only ones we know of have been dealt with, meaning that there must be a new harbinger that we don't know about. But forget all that, we need to go see our bundle of sunshine and joy. But we aren't greeted by her at the inverted tower where she usually is. Instead, we're greeted by the aquatic goddess of poisons and potions, Cantarella. She says that she's here because Kartathea also wanted to see her, but she never told her why. Just then we hear a gunshot. Before we know it, our wife is dead in our arms. Well, effectively dead. See, her frequencies aren't completely gone, so she's not like gone forever, but she is effectively dead. Her soul is somewhere else, essentially. Her body, a lifeless husk for now. Obviously, we're not gonna let that slide, so we need to go and kill Sourpuss immediately. But while tracking her down, we run into my radiant, shining hero of heroes, the GOAT, Avidius. He's here doing his part in this time of crisis, lending his spear to the people of Raguna. Tacit discords are popping up left and right, and he thinks Sourpuss is tied to it. She's known as the Discord Slayer. He groups up with us and we track her down together. While tracking her, we speak to Avidius a bit more. He accepted that in Septimont he already had a written story, a slave to fate. But in Raguna, he's a blank slate. Cristofaro didn't intend for him to exist in Raguna, so he has no history there. He can create his own destiny, and that's exactly what he intends to do. Avidius decides that he will be his own man. He will be his own hero. His fate is in his own hands. And we're rooting for you, my glorious GOAT! The trail we're taking leads us to a tacit field, but once we're inside, we're all alone. We then have to face a tacit discord, but it's tougher than usual. Just as things are starting to seem pointless, we hear the voice of Sourpuss. She gives us the method needed to defeat the enemy, so she helped us. She killed our wife, but now she's here helping us. There's more going on here than we initially thought. We were in the tacit field fighting a thundering Memphis, but when we regrouped with Avidius, he didn't have that same experience. When he went into the tacit field, he saw a previous figure of Septimont, Caligula, said to rip and tear all those who oppose him with a vile black resonance energy. The worst atrocities committed by the Dark Tide stem from him. So now things aren't making sense at all. Sourpuss comes out of nowhere, kills our wife, then saves us and says she's going to kill the Harbinger of the Dark Tide. But there is no Harbinger as far as we know. We defeated Mia, and Fenrico stayed in the underground area to hold the Dark Tide back. So who could the Harbinger possibly be? We use our telepathic abilities that we have. I'm gonna be honest, when the hell did we have these? Anyway, we use our telepathic ability to try and pick up some clue from the Dark Tide on what to do next, and who the Harbinger could be. We end up hearing Zani and Carlotta's voice through all the fog. They're in a vault. The avocado vault? Alvarado? What the hell is the vault called? Anyway, they're in the vault that's in Ragunna. What we find is not just Zani, Carlotta, and a ton of civilians. We also find Sourpuss, surrounded by the bodies of the innocent, except they aren't. The Tacit Discords now have the ability to disguise themselves as regular people, but Sourpuss is able to see through it. Just then, Fenrico appears, but that's impossible. And that's because it isn't actually him. It's more Tacit Discords. After revealing all of them, we work with Zani and Carlotta to clear them out. Avidius the GOAT puts in more work, once again, carrying every scene that he's in, giving us the civilization capsule, which if you don't remember, it's an item that we got from the Sentinel, but we haven't been able to activate it. Until now! The capsule just randomly activates and sucks us into a portal. Well, us, Sourpuss, and Avidius. Okay, so this part is like a huge lore dump. I'm gonna try to keep it extra simple. The civilization capsule is a device that records and preserves the birth, progress, and even the future of Renacita. We are then shown the origins of Renacita. Renacita was always influenced by fate and divinity. Because of that, there are essentially two kinds of people in Renacita. Those that follow divinity, either out of obligation or a genuine belief in the Sentinel's ideals, and those who reject the worship of divinity and fate as a whole, aka the people of Ragunna and the people of Septimont. We'll touch back on these themes later in the video because it's actually something that I really like that Kuro did with the narrative. The Sentinel left a message for us, essentially saying that despite guiding the people and having an idea of their fate, aka blueprints, they have always trusted and had faith in humanity to guide themselves. The same way that people worshipped and had faith in the Sentinel to guide them, the Sentinel had faith that those people could create their own path if needed. Sourpuss appears and gives us Kartathia's pendant. Through it, we hear her voice. Our perfect honey bun tells us to trust Galbrenna. Everything they've done was for the sake of defeating the Leviathan. So for now, we decide to trust Sourpuss. Sourpuss tells us that the Harbinger isn't necessarily behind the recent outbreak of Tacit Discords, but because the nature of a Harbinger, the monsters spawn naturally. So the Harbinger could be someone who doesn't even know that they're doing it. Once we make it out of the civilization capsule, Avidius is gone. He's our next suspect when it comes to finding the Harbinger, but he's fighting his own battles. He's desperately trying to fight the whispers of the Dark Tide. He is a creation of Christopharos after all, but Avidius is a true hero at heart and does absolutely everything he can to fight off the whispers of the Leviathan. We track him to Thessalio Falls, which is where Cantarella and the Phasalia family are fighting their own battle. The whispers are spreading and more people are being corrupted. We arrive just in time to watch Cantarella put an end to one of her own family members as he begs to be put out of his misery. But then we get the entrance of the woman, the myth, the legend, big top shotta cop killer street certified Phoebe. She pulls up with a bunch of members of the church to provide backup to Cantarella and her family. Quick side note, I don't know if it's explained in lore, but is Phoebe like a high-ranking church member or something? How is she able to pull up with her own platoon of acolytes and give orders like she's like a general or something? Is she actually the big top shotta of the church? I don't know. Anyway, with Phoebe and the church's support, we are free to chase after Avidius, and he's in pretty bad shape. When Avidius was in the civilization capsule, he saw the past, the origins of Renacita, the memories of those who came before him, and the basis of his creation. That ruthless evil tyrant that he mentioned earlier, Caligula, that was his blueprint, his fate, the role he was meant to inherit. When he left the civilization capsule, he felt the Tide Spawn's presence here, so he came to help. But he overestimated himself and was defeated and corrupted. And that's how we find him now, desperately resisting the corruption, the entire world, even fate itself stacked against him. He finally crumbles. Avidius now embodies the Mad King Caligula. After a fierce battle, we try to break through to Avidius. Maybe there's some hope left. Maybe we can do something. But Avidius is surrounded by darkness, hopeless, until he sees a little girl. It's Galbrenna, back when she was first swallowed by the Dark Tide. Avidius witnesses firsthand this little girl, on death's doorstep, surrounded by the terrors of the abyss, chose to fight. She chooses to stand up. She chooses to use the shadows of the Dark Tide to her advantage. That little girl's courage gives Avidius the spark he needed. Avidius uses his connection to the Dark Tide as the Mad King to absorb all of the Tide Spawn in the area, taking all the corruption into himself, which then allows Galbrenna to eat it. Avidius is gone, but in the end, he chose his own path. Cristofaro then shows up and starts yapping about fate and blah blah blah. I want to kill him so bad. He yaps for a bit and then confirms that Avidius is not the Harbinger we've been looking for. So we're back at square one. On the way back to check on Cantarella and Phoebe, we suffer another mental attack from the Dark Tide. similar to the one we had in the beginning of the quest. A corrupted version of our flawless snickerdoodle whispers sweet nothings into our ear. Mortals need salvation. Mortals need unity. Just as we're about to succumb to these whispers, Sourpuss is able to save us again. That's when Sourpuss puts everything together. This constant talk of salvation, paradise, Avidius's entire existence, and now these illusions that we keep seeing. We are the Harbinger. We are the one bringing the dark tide to Renacita, and we are the only ones who can stop it. Now with the information that the dark tide has its grips in us, Sourpuss comes up with a plan. But obviously she can't give us all the details because that would be like giving Leviathan all the details. So we're kinda in the dark right now. All she tells us is to head to Septimont. We arrive and get a chance to meet all of our good friends. Discount Miku, the violent Australian Lupa, and the most glorious, radiant, powerful, perfect ruler of Septimont, Augusta. We come up with a plan to secure the area utilizing these anchor obelisks. If we can secure each one, we can create a temporary safe zone for civilians where the tide spawn can't reach. We run into some problems though. The tide spawns seem to be coordinated, striking at the weak points in our formation. Augusta could just clear everything out, but the issue is that she'd not only damage the obelisk, but also any allies in the area too. So her overwhelming power can't be used here. That's when the reinforcements arrive and we get our Avengers Endgame moment. Brant and Roshia drop in with a troop of fools. Carlotta and Zani aren't far behind with the Montelli family and their echoes. Cantarella and the Phasalia family appear, also followed by Chiconia and a band of rogue bards and wanderers. Big top shot of cop killer street certified Phoebe pulls up with the church once again. With the assistance of our new allies, we're able to secure the obelisk. Also, they remembered Calcharo again. He's everywhere. I hope they continue to kind of treat him the same way HSR treats Argenti, where they just have him appear everywhere in main story and events, because Calcharo is my favorite character, and I think Kuro likes him too. They don't like him enough to fucking buff him, but they like him. Anyway, even with the assistance of our comrades, it doesn't stop the dark tide from growing in power. We need to stop the cause of it. We need to kill the Leviathan. Sourpuss knows what has to be done and jumps directly into the dark tide, telling us that when the tide spawn retreat to defend, that's when we seal it. But she isn't planning to end it there. See, paradise is a real place inside the dark tide, and once you become corrupted, you're allowed to enter. Galbrenna is technically touched by the dark tide, so she can enter. She tells us that one of us will need to enter after her and open the way for everyone else, so we can work together and destroy the Leviathan. Cantarella creates a potion that will partially corrupt whoever drinks it, thus allowing them to enter, but we decide that we can't ask them all to do that. We are the Harbinger, so we're going to go in alone and stop it. Just then, Chuyuin makes an appearance and he gives us the first relic, infused with the remnants of the power of the Sentinel. He says it was Fenrico's dying wish. The relic will be what finally seals the dark tide and cleans up the remnants of it. Brant offers to take it first, but Cantarella steps up and offers herself instead. Of course, we instantly shoot down the idea of anyone but us going into the dark tide. Our friends won't allow that though. The bonds that we've built with these people throughout the entire storyline has resulted in an undying loyalty to us and to the land they inhabit. The plan is that we head inside the dark tide, open up the path, and we all face the Leviathan together. Simple enough. While we're inside the dark tide, everyone will hold off the Fractidus and lingering tide spawn until we can open the way. So we go off into the dark tide. Inside, we're greeted by Chimera. I know he's unapologetically a bad guy, but man, he's such a good boy. Every time I see him, I was hoping Rover would just like pet him and ruffle his fur at least one time. Chimera takes us through Galbrenna's memories, showing us her past, what she went through to get the abilities she has, and how she ended up with him in the first place. Eventually we find Galbrenna and she finally explains the plan to us. Her and Kartathea come up with a plan to defeat Leviathan. Long story short, if Galbrenna could separate Kartathea's humanity and plant it within the Leviathan, it would give us the opening we need to finally defeat it. So we're in the dark tide. We've linked with Galbrenna. Now we just need to find a way to open the way for our allies so we can face Leviathan together. We make our way deeper into this paradise the dark tide has been promising everyone and come to a river, the River of Styx. Well, that's what it's supposed to be, but Sourpuss calls it Styx Lake. When someone is consumed by the dark tide, their souls gather at the Styx Lake. We also meet Charon. Charon, the boatman of the River of the Dead. In Greek mythos, Charon is a ferryman for the souls of the River of Styx, and he plays a similar role here. We managed to get him to give us a ride across, and we're able to activate the anchor stone for our allies to see. Just as they're preparing to move on with the plan, Scar and Frolova attack, and the expansion of the dark tide ramps up. We get to play as Chiwon here. Everybody else was swallowed by the dark tide without an opportunity to take the potion that Cantarella made. Charon then reveals himself to be not the ferryman of the river, but the grand architect of the Fractidus, taking the ferryman's form. His name was Schwarzenlock. God damn! Yes, last time I'm even trying that. Sourpuss tells us to go on ahead and disrupt the paradise so that our allies will have an easier time finding their way to us, while she handles the Grand Architect. We explore deeper and deeper into this paradise until we see the death of our comrades. Roshia and the rest of the troop sinking into the depths, Brant trying his best to save them. A captain who led his crew into the afterlife. Carlotta helplessly on the floor while her family tears each other apart, a failure of a leader. Zani's lifeless body lays on her shield, dying in an attempt to protect those close to her. Cantarella, surrounded by members of her family, now corrupted and turned to Tidespawn, eager to tear her apart. Chiconia, on her knees, completely unable to hear the songs of war and freedom. Lupa and her worst fear, dying not in combat like a true gladiator, but to poison on the floor of a gala. Augusta, among the bodies of allies and enemies alike. All of this pointless bloodshed, all of this power, for nothing, falls on the head of a poor ruler. Yuno, disappearing again, but this time, it wasn't even for a victory. A meaningless evaporation of her soul. Even Abby, fully succumbing to the pain and corruption of the dark tide, goes silent. Then, we come across him, Cristofaro. He yaps a lot, but basically Cristofaro's goal at the end of the day is to completely sever humanity from divinity and fate. He's humanist to the core, same as us, but he's going about it in the absolute worst way possible. No life or sacrifice is too great for him to achieve his finale. All the loss, tragedy, and bloodshed he's fostered, and we still can't get him! There's another thing that he says that's interesting though. The power of Overthrax is within Abby, and if the Dark Tide can successfully corrupt him, they can use the power of Overthrax to successfully bring about the birth of the Leviathan. We then get sucked into another illusion, like the ones we've been getting absorbed into throughout the whole quest, but this one is even stronger than last time. But back to Sourpuss, she's fighting the Grand Architect and gives a great speech about how she's way stronger than he thinks, catches him with his guard down, and wrecks his shit. It was a beautiful fight. Then we get one of the coolest things we've ever gotten in this game. It was like an on-rails arcade shooter. We go into first person and traverse the environment, taking down enemies along the way. Super unique, and I hope they do this again in the future. Look at these animations. This shit is so cool! Galbrena then finds us trapped in the illusion and starts the process to break us out. Meanwhile, inside, it's a grim and ghastly sight. We slowly walk past the tombstones of our friends. Carlotta, Chiconia, Zani, Brand, Roshia, Phoebe, Cartathea, Cantarella, Augusta, Yuno, and Lupa. All gone. Cristofaro tries his best to whisper despair into our head. And we almost succumb to it. You see a flash of Vidius, a flash of Mia. We grab the blade, close to putting an end to our own life, as that seems like the only answer. But as we grab the blade, we hear a familiar voice. It's Sourpuss. She explains that our friends aren't dead, but in a purgatory of sorts, a place between life and death, all going through their own trials and facing their own demons. As Galbrena stands next to us, the music kicks in! Like when you start the game and both rovers are sitting on that rock and the violin begins to play. Yeah, we're at that spot in the narrative right now, and that music is playing. I got goosebumps here, it's so fucking good. We walk down the path of radiance, with words from each and every single one of our companions ringing in our ears. Yes, I stopped to listen to what everyone had to say, and if you didn't, you're insane. Scar and Frolova are waiting for us at the end of the path and attack us. Luckily, we have Galbrena, and she's in some type of angel form. I don't care what anyone says, this is a reference to Lucia's Devil Trigger from DMC2, which is overhated, and the game is not that bad. Anyway, Devil Trigger, Galbrena, and all of our friends have made it here from their personal hells. They all stand together with us for the final battle. It's time for the finale, but we're missing someone. Our sweet perfect glazed honey bun is back. Now we can actually really start the final battle. We face the Leviathan, who's puppeteering a corrupted version of Cartathea. We utilize the strengths of all of our allies and cover each other's weaknesses. we work together and face off against the Thernodian, and finally manage to get the upper hand. Just as we do, we hear something. The Leviathan says, we'll talk about that later. For now, we win. We then see the Grand Architect, who says something I found really interesting. Our paths were never opposed. Further backing Cristofore's point of us having the same goals. And so, the calamity has been quelled and all is well again. Everyone is working together for cleaning, new bonds have been forged, and we are ready to wrap up this journey in Renacita. Right after making Sourpuss a member of the Black Shores, meaning we'll see her every now and then in the future because we'll have a constant connection to her. So, that's the recap. Let's talk about what I liked in this update, what I noticed, and what I didn't like. Starting with, Avidius is my favorite character when it comes to the narrative because he was handled so well. I'm a sucker for characters who embody true heroism. He's not just a good guy, but quite literally the personification of righteousness. Avidius was first set up like he was going to be an antagonist, making it clear he wanted the title of Hero of Heroes, and was even willing to challenge Augusta for it. But it was quickly shown that he didn't want the title just for the glory, or just for the benefits. It's because he truly felt that he was best suited for it, and if Augusta bested him and proved otherwise, he made it clear that he would accept that and step down. Once he finds out that his past and entire existence have been fabricated, he goes through a mental breakdown spanning like 3 updates. He first feels worthless. As someone who was defined by their accomplishments, having those taken away from him made him feel like nothing. Then he was confused, wondering what truly matters, how one comes into existence or what they do with their existence. It's kind of like that quote, the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It's what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. If you know who said that, leave a comment. Avidius eventually comes to the conclusion that as long as he has free will, he will be the one who determines what becomes of him. He chooses to become a radiant hero, worthy of praise, but right after finally overcoming that crisis, he's thrown right back into another one. He then learns that he is fated to follow the path of a brutal tyrant from history. In fact, it was who his creation was based on. So now he must face his destiny, and he does, head on. With a little help from us and Galbrena, he fights his fate once again, and uses everything he has, sacrificing his own life to go out as a hero, saving Raguna from the onslaught of Tidespawn it was facing. Peak character, peak arc, peak writing, peak design. God, I wish he was playable. I'm a sucker for stories where mankind rises up to face the gods. It's why God of High School is one of my favorite manhwa of all time. There's something about humans using their unbreakable will to fight against the very divine figures that gave them life and stand on their own 2 feet that scratches my brain in the right way every time, and here is no exception. Learning the origins of Renacita, how the Sentinel guided the people of Renacita and eventually created 2 types of citizens. Those in Raguna who worship the Sentinel, fear the Thernodian and put their religion above all else, and those of Septimont who acknowledge the guidance of the Sentinel but do not worship it or any god. They do not fear the Thernodian, they face the dark tide and its creations every day and even hunt it like game for glory. The people of Raguna and Septimont being so vastly different despite having the same origins made the characters so much more interesting and the world too. That was something that I think the 1.x storyline was missing. The tone of this finale was absolutely amazing. Everything felt urgent and you could feel the calamity taking the land around you, and the characters all acted accordingly. What made me lock in though was watching Cantarella have to kill one of her own family members. That's when I was like, oh yeah, shit is real now. And I'm not gonna lie, I choked up a little bit when we saw everyone facing their demons and greatest fears. It was thug tears though, okay? No baby shit. I love the fact that we were the Harbinger. Having us be the reason why the Tidespawn were able to be everywhere, but also have us as the symbol of hope is a great duality to have. The very thing anchoring all these monsters here, and also the thing that everyone looks to when hope is lost being the same exact person, was absolutely wonderful. I hope they continue to keep the Rover deeply entwined in the overarching narrative throughout the storyline, because that's what makes him interesting. The gameplay was actually really good. Usually the story gameplay is pretty forgettable, but for this update, not only did we get to use Galbrena and Chuyuan, we also got to use that Dreamscape team-up mechanic multiple times. I don't care how gimmicky it seems, I want that ability to be in more content. The first person section was also super cool, and I really want more of that as well. Overall, the gameplay portion of the narrative was actually really strong for this update, which usually isn't the case. My theory right now is that the same way that we were the head of all the Sentinels, Abby was the head of all the Thernodian. That's my theory, and it's based off of that one line that Leviathan said, "Abraxas, why hast thou forsaken us?" Think about how cool it would be narratively if Abby, our buddy, our partner in crime, the one who saved our life time and time again, was also our greatest enemy and our biggest foe in history. We'll just have to see how that goes. This man is a demon. I love him. He's been a highlight in this story. He is cruel, ruthless, and has no remorse for any of the sins he's committed. Him trying to get us to kill ourselves was genuinely insane. And Rover was gonna do it too. If Galbrena didn't show up the second we grabbed that sword, what was gonna happen? I feel like Rover was gonna do it, man. I really do. I'm gonna have some crazy mixed emotions when we finally get to put an end to him. So I've had this theory pretty much ever since the game came out, but I really don't think the Fraxidus are our enemies. Don't get me wrong, they are bad guys, responsible for countless deaths, but their goals are not different from ours. Rover's goal is to empower humanity. The Sentinels provide guidance, yes, but Rover has always made it clear that they believe civilization is strongest when led by man, and the Fraxidus feel the same. Cristofaro's goals are to completely sever the connection between humanity and divinity, so that the weak may be culled and humans can become even greater through their own merits. The problem is that they're going about it in the absolute worst way possible. See, Rover is trying to achieve this goal by walking among humans and aiding them in starting their own communities, showing them that they're stronger and more capable than they may know. While the Fraxidus want to force people to evolve through bloodshed and survival of the fittest. These two opposing methods of furthering humanity are what caused the friction between us, and I'm very interested to see how this conflict plays out. The last notable thing that I really like was Galbrena. She was handled expertly. She was the main character here, and this is something that they did before with Lupa. They also gave Lupa the spotlight and made her the main character, and they did the same with Galbrena here. Galbrena is human will personified. Like if you thought Augusta was strong and Augusta had willpower, oh my god, Galbrena is willpower personified. She should get a Green Lantern ring. Like even as a kid who got basically sent to hell, she was like a fucking 8-year-old and got sent to hell and was still like standing on 10 toes. Like Galbrena is genuinely one of the coolest characters, and not cool because like, oh, she's so badass. She's cool because she perfectly embodies the unwavering willpower of mankind. That's why I like her. Okay, on to what I did not like. I want to make it clear, I understand that there are various factors when it comes to game development and devs reusing assets. That being said, I'm willing to let a reused asset slide if it's repurposed in a good way. Kuro did that for the most part. The fight with Avidius reused the Sovereign from Augusta's story, but he came with some new attacks and animations, so I'm okay with that. The fight with the Leviathan used Kartathia's fight again, but they changed the model to represent a corrupted Kartathia and gave them some new attacks and animations as well, and I'm okay with that too. However, I'm still putting this under the don't like section because I would really prefer if we could get all new bosses for major story events like these. While narratively I understand why it was a corrupted Kartathia and not the Leviathan's body, I really would have liked some type of all new boss. And for Avidius, it would have been really cool if we fought him in his half-corrupted form and he used attacks that were reminiscent of the vile Black Resonance energy that Caligula had. We have fights with human-sized characters in the game like Scar and Augusta, so I know it's possible, it's just a matter of them doing it. I was okay when they did it with Augusta, and I even liked it a little bit when we did it with Yuno, but now doing it again with Galbrena, it's starting to get tiring. I'm talking about the walking through a character's memory trope. Usually we're plopped in a hallway or a room and we interact with the character's memories to learn about who they were, but I'm kinda tired of that method of storytelling. I really hope this is the last time they're gonna utilize it for a while, otherwise it's gonna start feeling pretty lazy. And that's all my favorite parts and criticisms. This video ended up being way longer than I thought it would be, so if you're still here, I wanna say thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next video where I go over my feelings on every single 2.x character. Subscribe and let me know what you thought of the entire 2.x storyline and this update. Have yourself a damn good one.